Hi folks, this is Claire Mataira. It's the end of October 2019. I'm here in my little Amazon house at the rivers Amazon in Peru, near Iquitos, where I work with Ayahuasca and other medicine plants, and also in general with the attitudes that go together with the New Age. Now, I want to talk about something that is a little difficult, and I'm sure I'm going to get some talk back about this one. But when I was looking at the ayahuasca forums, I found that many times people are saying, what's the right shaman? Who's the right shaman? Can we just find this? This person is taking advantage, that other person is just a businessman. People are abusing ayahuasca. Okay, I'm not talking about any of that, because that is the world and that's how things are sometimes. But when a person is going to choose a shaman or is looking for an experience with the medicine plants, they are looking for another reality. They are looking for entering into a new reality. And the thing that we've got to focus on here is that I've kind of made a few notes here. I fully believe that there's no such thing as the wrong shaman. And many people will argue with me about that, I'm sure. But I would like to feel it as a point of view to consider. Because when you enter into the energies of the medicine path, you are entering into a different reality and a different way of looking at reality. And this is why we are desperately looking for a different reality. We are so tired of all the fear-mongering, the news, the attacks, the violence that we think is going to bring the world together, which of course it isn't, and everyone can see that. So when we're in the field of so-called normal life that we are now trying to leave behind, we are in the field of accidents and coincidences, of fear and control and power. This is what we want to leave behind. But as we are doing this, we are going to move to the field of synchronicity. Synchronicity means that everything somehow, because it's all together and all connected, moves in the right place at the right time. That means that we have to overcome our fears that we somehow will be cheated, or that we somehow will be taken advantage of. And I would like to look at this because this is where a reality where the fragmentation of our life is going to disappear and wholeness will appear. I was looking at Mr. Ted talking about his own TED Talks, and he was saying that often we find that we're getting a lot of talk back from our own families and our own people that we love when we try to move away from this, because these people do not necessarily want to release their idea of reality, and then we are going against it, when we're following some kind of inspiration or some kind of call, or some following the heart where we are feeling this is not working for me anymore. I really, really want to do it differently. How do I do it? I'm too sick, I'm too this, I'm too that, and I've had enough. So this is where we're actually having to look at ourselves. We cannot go and complain about the world out there. We cannot say, this shaman did me so badly, I've been so cheated, I've been so ripped off. That cannot be your attitude when you're going into the medicine path. The medicine path is completely your own path, and we have to take responsibility for every single part of it. If somebody is charging you too much money and you think it's okay, or you're allowing yourself to be ripped off, which maybe you aren't, you have to say, okay, this is what I accept. I accept that I did this. I accept that I agreed to this. And then you can say, well, I don't want to do it anymore, or that's never again, or something like that. Then is it a learning process, and that is okay. When I first came to Peru, which was in 2006, I was seen as one of the crazy gringas that was looking for something, and I had a very strong call from the spirits in Australia from spirits from South America, but I was living in Australia at the time, to go to Peru and to Bolivia and to learn about medicine plants. So the medicine plants definitely were calling me, and that is how I followed the call, but it was extremely difficult for me to even understand what was going on and why I was going, and I had ideas, but it didn't necessarily appear very clearly. I didn't speak any Spanish. I had no friends here. I didn't know anybody. And I was just basically going on the spirit path. And slowly, everything was made clear to me, and everything was provided. And this is where the field of synchronicity comes in, because I agreed to surrender to that situation, to that process. The thing was, I had no money at the time either, and nobody wanted to support me. None of my friends, no relatives, no family, nobody wanted to support me. They said, this is very dangerous, you don't know what you're doing, you are old, I was already 56 at the time, and I'm now 70, and it is like, wow, in our normal way of looking at things, that is completely stupid, really. So the thing was, I felt that I had no other choice. I felt that the other life was basically like a living death for me, that I could not agree to it anymore, I could not live like that anymore, and I felt that I really had to do something about it. So the call was very strong. I went over to South America, and slowly everything, well, I have to mention here that nobody wanted to give me money to do this. So I said to the spirits that were calling me, I said, if you're any good, you have to give me this money, because if you want me to do this, you have to look after my children, which were already adults, but whatever that meant, support them and help them in their new life and without me. And also, I have to have money, because I can't do this without any money. So a friend of mine very shortly after that rang me from New Zealand. He was a person who had a lot of visions, and he said, one of your spirits came in my room and told me that I had to ask my friend in South America, in the United States, for money for your trip. Send a piece of your book. So I was already writing about this experience, because it was so confusing. I had to write it to process it. So I sent a piece of my writing to this person that he indicated, and within a week she had given me $6,000 to go to South America and to begin on my medicine path. So this was one of the ways. I've never met this lady, and I'm extremely grateful to her, and I hope she will be blessed 1,000-fold for this generous attitude that she had. So anyway, I came to South America, and she supported me for the first 6 months while I went to Bolivia, which was I followed everything that my spirits told me, so I would feel that I was in the right field of synchronicity, that I was having the energy behind me, the force would be with me, so we're looking for the force be with you as something that is really, really important when we're going on this new level of consciousness. And we cannot go back on it. Once you go there, you cannot go back. It's like you've shed your cocoon. You cannot go back and fold your wings back into the cocoon. It's not possible. And it's grievous at times, because we think, we miss our family. We would like to have some support from the people that used to support and love us, but they are not there anymore. And this is one of the very difficult things that we have to face. And not only that, there will also be certain support places which you cannot go back to. That doesn't have to only be family, that can also be business ventures or people who have worked with you before, or banks that might say, well, look, lady, I don't think I can follow this, bye-bye. So, and the same with some of the medical situations that you might face when you are going there, and especially for people who have some health problems or who are already older. So this is another fear that has to be overcome. There's so many fears, I had when I knew that the Spirit said you have to go to South America, you are going to have to find a way and learn from the indigenous people, and you're going to have to learn from the whole environment, and that's the only way you're going to do it. You can't do it as a Westerner. You can't go in there and end up spending lots of money, because you're not going to have any money. So this is one of those things that I had to completely, shift my complete understanding, my complete brain. And I think that this is what we have to face when we are going to South America. We cannot hold on to our Western world. There are many people that have moved into this field of this, bridging this gap, between the Peruvian way of thinking, the native way of thinking. There are different fields here because a lot of Peruvian natives do not support any ayahuasca. A lot of Peruvian city people are afraid of ayahuasca, and the consciousness shift for them is also scary. And it's not something that they understand when the foreigners come in. They only understand that the foreigners bring a lot of money. They have been struggling a lot, many of these people, in a very narrow-minded consciousness of poverty and scraping and scrounging and trying to make the most of what they have. And some of their bigger income is to do with drug dealing or with some weird businesses like selling the forest or all these things like petroleum, finding gold. So this is mining, which, Peruvians have also found that for a quick buck they have sold their resources in many ways. And I'm waiting for the government sooner or later to take back these resources as the property of their own country. But that will happen in its own way, and I'm not a political person, and I don't believe that politics can actually really solve the problem. I think the problem is going to be solved by people stepping into the synchronistic field, by stepping into their belief in the oneness of it all, and that we cannot go on fighting each other. We cannot go on thinking that everything is right or wrong. It is not going to work anymore. So how can we overcome this? We can only overcome it by facing that somehow there is another side to things, that everybody has their own story. And we cannot judge people on saying, oh, you're having the wrong story. No, that is your story, It doesn't mean that it has to be my story. It just means that they are having another story. They're having other interpretations of their reality. And that is something that we all have a right to. It is the process of learning. It is like when my children were very small. I have 3 children. The older one would see the younger one struggling with his blocks, and the younger one would try to put the blocks all on top of each other and get it right, and he was really, really working hard. He was 2, and he was having a lot of trouble with his mobile functions and learning, And then my daughter would come and say, look, this is how you do it. And she put it all together, bang, 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 like that, because she was already 4 or 5 or 7 or 6, I haven't forgotten, they got 4 years difference. And she did it instantly, and he would stand there and look at it and start screaming. And that was because his power was taken away at that moment. He could not actually work it out for himself. And this is what we have to understand, that everybody on some level has to work it out for themselves. They have to work it out for themselves to be able to take up their own power. If they cannot work it out for themselves, they are lost. They're always going to have another person to interpret their reality and to make it work for them. And that is making a very, very dependent society of all sorts of poor, miserable people, that cannot help themselves. So by coming in even with helping agencies that are going to help Peruvians and fix up their schools and fix up this and that, we are actually imposing a point of view that we have from the Western world, that this is how it's supposed to be. But at the same time, these native people have had a very, very old culture of working things out. And so we're actually wiping all that off the table and say, native people are stupid, which is not true, of course not. They have lived here for a very long time, and if the world came to an end and there was some big change, they would be the ones that survived, not us, because we haven't got the technology that they have to live in the environment, to be part of the great I Am. They are completely connected to the forest. They are guided to certain ways where they're going to find themselves surviving. When we don't have that skill, and that's what we want to learn from them. That's what we have to respect in them, that they're having a very humble attitude towards the environment, that they're having a very openness to the spirits of the energy around in the forest, for instance. But it's not only in the forest, it's all around the whole world. We're not going to be more blessed in the forest or more blessed in the rivers. Everywhere is the blessing. Everywhere where you are. If you're in a hotel room, if you're in a room up the 10th floor of a sky-high building, it can happen anywhere because it's you. It is in you, and you cannot blame other people. So we also have to look at the past lives and the history that everyone has had in their past lives. When you get a lot of bad luck, so to speak, bad luck, you have to say, well, maybe I'm actually being helped to get cleaned off a lot of bad attitudes that I had before. So to be grateful for bad luck is not easy to do, but it is a very, very good attitude. Because if you can be grateful for bad luck and say, well, right, now I've been able to pay this debt off to this person, which I didn't even know I had. But as you do this happily and willingly with an open heart, you will find that before you know it, somebody else is suddenly going to pay back something to you that you didn't know they owed you. And they are going to be very happy to look after you or help you with something. So this is what we have to have, an open heart to be able to receive and to be able to give. And the giving cannot be conditional all the time. It cannot be saying, well, I've just bought this for you and now you have to give that back to me, you know. Because sometimes it doesn't work like that. We can say, okay, I give this to you and then somebody else will give it to me when I need it, you know. And this is how I found it has worked for me in the last 13 years that I've been here in South America. And I've been able to find a lot of guidance and a lot of help from people who have been basically misfits, basically haven't been able to find their way in society. People have always got something to share and always got something to teach you. So this is what I want to say today to all the people who are looking for the wrong shaman or the right shaman. If you find a shaman who is, maybe you think he's abusing you, be very, very clear with yourself. What is your emotion here? And are you willing to put up with it? And are you willing to accept it? Or are you willing to say, well, that's enough now, and maybe I will make myself clear to this person that that's not enough. All right, well, this has to be enough for today. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for listening. Ciao.